Those feel like her steps. She's coming for me. Let me know, no.
So you've got a pretty interesting new record. I think you got the first album out that Google was an important part of the whole thing, because you got these 13 women, and of course I had to look every one of them up, see their photos, see their little stories, articles about them. It's fantastic. So it's 13 women's songs inspired by works by women in U.S. history. So, which is pretty cool, and especially since it's not a lot of I mean, there's Amelia Earhart, who we've heard of, and a couple of other ones, but most of them are pretty obscure. So you must have done a lot of research.
I actually sent money to Wikipedia at one point. I thought, they send out requests periodically, and I thought, I have used you in a major way. Here's some money. Thank you. Yeah, it was fun.
It's too bad people don't feel that way about musicians and listening to their music without paying for it.
Well, there's that. The funny thing about this, because I did spend a goodly amount of time just drilling down, researching different women, people would give me ideas, or I would think of some era that I wanted to look at and look for women in there. So there was a lot of that research going on. The irony here is that I dropped out of my US history class when I was in high school. I decided the teacher was a sexist jerk. And I was an arrogant teenager. And
goes with the territory.
And I remember saying to my father, why do I need to learn history? This isn't going to help me.
Right. I love it.
The folly of youth.
Well, I always kind of wished that I had a chance to go to school when I was older anyway, because it'd be nice to go now. And maybe I will. I don't know.
I'm with you. Well, this project, definitely, I got to do some of that fun research that I should have known was fun back then.
Yep. Well, and of course you didn't have the internet to deal with, probably.
Correct.
So that's always a problem. True. And you can kind of find your own way among things. And
exactly.
So in addition to Helen Keller and folks and Amelia Earhart and maybe Josephine Baker, most of them are fairly unfamiliar to the average person. So which one of the unfamiliar ones is the one that intrigued you the most?
People keep asking that, and I often bring up Lucy Goldthorpe, who's the least well known. I just found some quotes and a picture of her. She's the prairie woman I ended up focusing on. The quotes I read felt contemporary to me. They were just smart and down to earth. And as I dug into her, I thought, wow, this could be like one of my friends. But she was doing this over a century ago. So I definitely hooked into that. But each woman I went into, a woman would be suggested, and usually I would have ooh, that sounds interesting. And then I'd start digging to get some info for background. And almost every one, there was something about them that just got my creative fire going.
Right. And you go all the way back to the Salem witch trials. So
yes. Yeah. Well, that was because Trump was in office. Right. And I, like many of us, was saying, I can't believe all these people voted for this guy. How could this happen? And I thought, what was another time in history where people just sort of mass hysteria? I thought, Salem witch trials.
Yeah. Are you feeling a little better about the politics of the U.S. now? Or
yes, I am. Thank you very much.
That's good.
There's been a collective sigh of relief, at least me and my friends.
Right. And in addition to, obviously, the subject matter of each of the songs, there's the music as well. So how did you go? I hear some background vocals and some other, is it mostly you recording on your own, or are you working in a studio, or are you working by yourself or with other people?
I'm quite lucky. I'm married to a producer engineer.
Oh, that helps.
So that's what he has done for his living for a long time.
Right.
So everything I've recorded the last 20 years, it's in Tom's studio. So we're used to the process. And typically, sometimes people put arrangements together, they start with the rhythm section. And that's a common one. I went a little bit backwards and I went guitar vocal first. And then we built from there. I'm big on vocal harmonies. So I that's just like eating candy to me. So I know a lot of great singers.
Yeah.
So
well, you are in Nashville.
in Nashville, the funny thing here is that one song, I brought a bunch of women in because I wanted a whole little weavy tapestry thing. Most of the women are in my co-ed book club.
Right.
So I didn't have to reach very far to find singers to add. And that was fun. That just added to the fun of the whole project.
Now, you mentioned that you write most of them on guitar, but if I'm not mistaken, Castles was written on the piano. Is that right?
I am a failed debutante, a private, quiet one. But I always get what I want. I get the job done. And I knew when I was 6 that I'd be an architect, and the world said no, so I made it say yes, yes, yes.
Yes, that was on piano, and I actually write a lot on piano, but I perform on guitar. So I will do a lot of noodling on piano and sort through all the muck to find something that gets me going. So Spell, the Salem Witch Trials, Sarah Wilde one, started on piano, and then I translated over to guitar and start building from there.
Right. Now, one of the more contemporary folks that you covered is Peace Pilgrim, with a song called Walk This Freedom, who I, of course, never heard of.
Got a toothbrush, I got a comb, I got a pen and map. I gave the rest away, didn't even keep my name, just the clothes on my back.
I had neither.
She was an ex-flapper, and she went on to walk for thousands of miles for
oh my
God
gosh,
knows how many years. I mean, how does that happen?
I posted on Facebook and said, I'm doing this project, give me ideas, and at least 100 responses. And a couple of people said Peace Pilgrim, and I had the same reaction. Who is that? And looked her up. And I had the same reaction as you. How are you a flapper who, I think she was comfortable, upper middle class? How do you get from there to this woman who not only gives away all of her belongings, but her name?
Right.
And then just starts walking. Well, I'll just, if no one gives me a couch to sleep on, I'll just sleep on the ground.
Right.
How do you get to that? That was just extraordinary.
Apparently, she only carried a pen, a comb, a toothbrush, and a map.
That was it. That was it. Yeah. I'm not sure I could pull that off.
Right.
And I didn't put this in the song. She led the Rose Bowl parade in Pasadena. I don't know how that happened. And then she started on her journey.
Okay.
She crisscrossed the U.S. multiple times.
Amazing. And one of your subjects was actually played by Nicole Kidman in a film, Martha
Gellhorn. I haven't watched the film. It didn't get great ratings.
Right.
That was one of those, the internet is constantly throwing things at you that you think, where did you hear this? How could this happen? And an article was thrown at me about her and about Martha Gellhorn, and I read it and had one of those, ooh, she's interesting. So I just kept digging.
Well, she was a war correspondent, some kind of advisor to Eleanor Roosevelt, and she was married to Ernest Hemingway on top of all that.
And that's the least interesting part of it. She was not only a war correspondent, she got into places no one else could get to. Yeah. She was pretty amazing. And the song is quite serious. It's about the aspect of her that just felt that she had to report. And this was her job, to get the truth out to everyone.
I watch bombs thrash the beach at Normandy. I walk the camps where evil swept through. Someone must report from the edges. People just like us live there, so I do.
But some of her writings on the side are almost like Dorothy Parker. She was really witty, really smart, funny. And so, boy, I wish I could have met her.
Well, yeah. So did you come across other women that kind of didn't make the cut?
There were a bunch of them that not women, everyone would suggest. And I kept a list just in case I want to do another round of these.
Right.
And I don't really know why. Some people just, I thought, ooh, yeah. And others like, okay. I'm not sure why. I needed to get in everyone's skin because I had the audacity to think, I'm going to do this first person. Yep. I'm just going to method act a little bit here. It's not going to be what Amelia Earhart would have said. It's obviously this strange fiction that I'm coming up with, but that's how I want these songs to be, is first person. Yeah,
and of course, Amelia Earhart's still in the headlines even today. They're still looking for her.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's the big one. There was no shortage of information on her. Though the interesting thing about her was the song is about that specific flight, the first transatlantic flight, solo, going from, Nova Scotia over to Europe. There's a recording of her talking about it.
Oh, really?
And thank you, YouTube. So I got to watch her talking about when they hit the storm and what it was like. And the persona in the song, I think, is much more nervous than Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was like an engineer. Yeah. She was very calm. Well, yes, it got pretty rocky in there. And so I pulled this back and I checked the this and the that. I thought, oh, gosh. Yeah.
That's crazy. And probably the person that has the most effect on what's happening in the world right now is Henrietta Lacks.
Wow. What would we have done without her? And the only one that never knew
she's completely oblivious.
Yes. What a sad and amazing story, where it was such a dual response I had to her of, wow, the injustice of this woman, and wow, this woman who had no idea she would influence medical breakthroughs around the world for decades.
Yep, and right up to the COVID vaccines and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yeah, a friend wrote me and said, oh yeah, we used her cells all the time when I was doing cancer research.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing. That was just magical.
Yeah. So what kind of response have you got from folks now that the record's out? And
I'm just, very gratifying, nice reviews coming in. Right. And also a lot of people saying, this is causing me to drill down and read more about these women, which is great.
Yep.
I love that. That was one of my wishes. And people saying who their favorites are, and so nice response coming through, which is great because it's a pandemic and we're all still at home and
we are
can't do the touring or the live gigs right now. So it's a nice way to have contact with people.
Right. So if it wasn't the pandemic and you weren't locked down, what would you be doing musically?
I would start off in Nashville. What usually happens, start off in Nashville with a CD release show and get some of the musicians and singers who are on the album, since many of them live here,
right?
Get them on stage, have a whole bunch of fun, and then book a tour. It would probably be a little different than usual because I'd probably talk about the women more in between songs, instead of trying to think of some witty thing to say about how I got from Nashville to Berkeley for the gig.
Right. Very good. Because you've been involved in bands and stuff over the years. So
exactly.
Are you a confirmed solo artist at this point, or are you?
Usually touring, I tour with Tom, my husband. So it's a duo at least.
Right.
And depending where we are, sometimes we'll pick up people. My hometown is Berkeley, California.
Right.
And my friend Renee Hayes, who's on the bulk of the songs, she always comes to sing backup for me at those shows. So, and another friend in LA who I sang with in college, she'll come and sing with me. So it's definitely reunion time for some of these gigs. Other places, it's just duo.
Right. And you co-wrote a song with Renee, Wave That Rocks Me.
Renee, yes.
Tell me I'm too wild. Tell me I'm too wild. Just like a stubborn child. That's a wave that rocks me. I won't let that stop me.
That was one where I was visiting with Renee and she said, you have to write about Edmonia Lewis. And I, of course, said, who's that? And she basically, she did the research. So we just sat there and she was doing the research, shouting out ideas. And I was writing things down. And then I went off and wrote it. And she still is very connected in with Edmonia Lewis. We may be hearing more about her in the future if Renee has her druthers.
Right. And she's, of course, a sculptor, right?
A sculptor who Job-like mountains that she had to climb over to get to what she wanted to do. Orphaned when she was young, kicked out of school. They said, you're too wild. Lived for a while with her Chippewa relatives, and then eventually made her way to, why am I blanking out on the college that starts with an O, that was the only college in the US that would accept women or Black people at the time. It's going to come to me in a second, or I'll have to look it up. She was kicked out of there at one point. She was accused of poisoning her housemate. She was abducted and beaten. I mean, just everything happened to this poor woman. And she finally made her way to Rome because she just thought, I'm going to be a sculptor, made her way to Rome and became the toast of Europe.
Right.
It was just extraordinary. And we don't hear about her much now. Yeah. I think she died in obscurity. And I hope she gets a little bit more talk now. But, that was a case where I'm a middle-class white girl. I did not have those kinds of hardships. I couldn't identify with that. How was I going to write in first person about that? Sure. And I ended up just identifying with that determination.
Right.
I thought, I'm not going to get super biographical here. I'm just going to talk about that deep desire, and nothing's going to stop me.
Very good. So what have you got? Are you thinking about what you're going to do next?
I am afraid I'm still in the watching and waiting.
Okay. All right. That's cool.
Yeah. It's that real nebulous time right now where people aren't really sure if they can book anything yet. We don't know how quickly things are going to be opening. So it's all TBA at this point.
Right. Well, this project seems to be very timely with other things that are going around. People are digging up old stories of unknown people, whether they're
Right.
women or men or black or white or whatever they are, and going, look at what this person was able to do under these circumstances that they had to deal with back in the day. So
it has been an extraordinary time,
Yeah.
and on many different levels, and inspiration is good. I think inspiration in any form, we can use that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.